Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming out. It's wonderful to see a big room full of people, and I hope you will have a great time in San Francisco. If you're not from here, I'm a local, so feel free to ask me about things. My name is Dinah Sanders. I wrote a book called Discardia, More Life, Less Stuff. And if you asked me what movie the book is most like, I would have to say Shaun of the Dead. Because really, it's all about staying tuned in to what brings you joy, killing anything that tries to eat your brain, and living happily ever after, ideally playing video games with your best friend. So the problem that we have is that the zombies that we face tend to take the form of tasks and projects that either drive us away or overwhelm us. In particular, overwhelming us. There is a great benefit to getting everything out of your head and into a trusted system. But once you see very clearly for the first time just how much you are carrying around, it can throw you into a slight state of shock. So I want to talk about how you keep your to-do list alive with what you really most care about. And what you really most care about, not just in the moment with what's happening today and what's, as David Allen says, latest and loudest, right? But what you care about when you're tuned in to your highest priorities. So the first piece of advice I have is to group things by role. Who do you want to be in your life? We all wear a lot of hats, and some of those hats are more important than others. And if you start thinking about, well, if something went wrong in this area, what I know is most important to me, you know, my partner, my own health, my kids, something, my business, what would I set down? What order do I set down some of my roles in order to focus on what matters to me? That helps you sort things into priorities. So I really recommend grouping and prioritizing your projects by the role that they help you fulfill. One of the great things about OmniFocus is the way that this underlying priority will flow through into other lists, like a list of tasks from different projects, such as when you're viewing in a context. If you've got a bunch of phone calls to make today, it's kind of nice if they naturally flow down from what matters to you most. Also, give yourself the ability to focus. Give yourself the ability to set some space where the things that aren't important right at this moment aren't clamoring on you. So create a perspective of just today's tasks, a way of looking at just what has to happen today. And close those other days. Yeah, sure, you've got events scheduled in the future. Things will be due tomorrow. Great, you're not dead. Congratulations. You know, cut the noise. Just look at what today's is. And then I strongly recommend having this set such that the status filter is due or flagged, because then you can use flags as a way to throw things onto a fit this in as soon as I can list. So instead of, as Tim was saying, setting a due date that isn't really a due date, and then having it slide to the next day, which is actually okay, but it feels icky if you have to go in and then reassign a new due date. It's much less demoralizing to have these automatically flow over to the next day. And what's nice is, as you check off the things on the top, those other ones start to become more visible and remind you of them. Cut the noise, definitely, and do this on the weekly level as well. So within a given week, stay focused and be realistic. Put things on hold that aren't part of this week. Use the status on your projects with confidence. If you clear your decks, you can always activate things again. But the problem that a lot of us have is not too few things on our to-do list. It's seeing everything at once and getting a little bit deer in the headlights about it. To be able to create confidence and space for yourself when it's most hectic, set up these routines for yourself when it's most quiet. So when you pull back to do that weekly review, give yourself some credit and say, okay, that's important and I'm going to come back to it, but it's not right now and it goes on hold because I trust myself. And that is important. Trust OmniFocus and yourself to confidently ignore projects. You are allowed not to be working on everything at once, and you will actually complete more if you aren't trying to. So set up those review cycles, and you can do that in the web app, and you can do that, it's a little bit subtle in OmniFocus, but if you click on this, what appears to be purely informational, you will get the review every controls in the iPad version as well. I really love doing my weekly review on the iPad. Just gonna sit on the couch or at a cafe, and it's just my little device. I'm not like the whole laptop, I'm very relaxed. To be able to fine-tune this as part of the review is really important because that's when you say, is this project really part of this week's work, or does it need to wait? What's interesting about trusting review cycles and establishing them, even for a lot of your back burner stuff, is the freedom it gives you to let go of things, to not have to keep it in the back of your mind because you know that, okay, maybe it's 3 months from now when this is going to come up again. And it'll present itself, this old and cold project will present itself and say, am I interesting right now? Am I hot? Should I get activated? Are there any notes you need to add? And that's what happens for me for a lot of these projects. Stuff like, website touch-up stuff. If I'm not got an urgent problem I'm solving, then maybe it's just, oh, I saw that cool thing on somebody else's site. That's right, when I go back in and I'm doing a round of redesign, I should remember that. So maybe when I do my weekly review, I add a note, and then I hit mark reviewed, and it can come back and talk to me again in a couple months. And I don't have to think about it until then. I realized after making this slide that people might think I had to plan my direct messages. Dungeon Master, not DM ideas, not DM ideas. So this is so important, I want to hit it again. Respect your real decisions, what your gut tells you about your projects, what you're really doing with whether something is active or not. If you're not working on it this week, it's on hold. And that's okay. You can come back to it later. You're allowed to put things on hold. Also, let go of things that you have abandoned. Don't pretend you haven't dropped it when you had. Hit dropped. Send it to the archive. It's okay. The thing that I want to leave you with is the idea of creating space for yourself to work on the goals and the tasks for you now, not for the you that used to be. Thanks.